Highlights. My name is Andrea Evans, and I'm here with my fabulous co-host, Ashley Deadweiler-Jones, and we are really excited about this episode of HBCU Highlights because we are going to talk about the importance of voting and, most importantly, why we run for office, why we should vote. And I know, comment below if you've already voted. We want to give you a shout out because every vote counts, right? So we're going to go all the way to the polls and rock the vote and do what we can. But we have two amazing guests, and I'm not just saying they're amazing because they're running for office. You're going to see for yourself, but they are our Spelman sisters. So, you know, Spelman has a standard for excellence. And today I have two excellent women joining us. We have Judge Monica Purdy, who's Spelman alumni, class of 1989, and we have Cynthia Wallace, who is class of 1993. And let me just tell you all briefly that Judge Monica Purdy is right now Associate Judge in Dallas, Texas, and she is running for the 95th Civil District Court in Dallas, Texas. So she's going to tell you all about why she decided to run and just run again, because you've been running, Judge Purdy, and we're proud of you, but you're running again. So we want you to talk about that. But Cynthia Wallace, you are equally as amazing, because if Cynthia wins this position for the congressional district in North Carolina, she will be the first African American, and I'm just going to stop and say period, that's it, ever, to hold that position. And she just told us tonight that she will be the first Spelman alumni to ever be elected to Congress. So calling all my Spelmanites, we need everybody to run to the polls and call everybody they know in North Carolina. But I'm going to let you all tell us yourself about why we should vote for you and why you ran. But let's just take it back to the beginning, because I know that when you all were growing up, you were amazing students, I'm sure. And you had a lot of choices when it was time to go to college. And you both chose Spelman College. So let's just start with Judge Monica Purdy. Why did you choose to attend Spelman College?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here with equally fabulous co-hosts. So thanks for the invitation to be here this evening. But, you know, I often have a funny story about choosing Spelman. I grew up in Tampa, Florida. I was a cheerleader at my high school. I attended public high school. But my parents, my mother in particular, would always suggest to me, why don't you look at Spelman, or, you know, why don't you read this article? Let's schedule a visit. And my first response to her was, I'm not going to that all-girls school. Like, why do you keep leaving these Xerox copies on my bed? I'm not interested. And she asked me, well, what schools are you interested in? And being the teenager that I was, I said, well, University of Miami. And I only said that because that's where everybody in my high school was planning to go to. Many of the African-American students that were in Florida, they went to Florida A&M, or they went to Bethune-Cookman. And the majority school was the University of Miami. That's where people wanted to go. So I was just one of those people that were, you know, following the crowd. This is what I want to do too. And my mother said, well, let's just take a look. And I still was sort of being rebellious, not really wanting to follow her direction, but she knew me and she knew me well. So she arranged for me to have a visit during the beginning. It was literally towards homecoming, like that homecoming time. So like college applications are due. But she arranged for me to have a visit, and at that time I was put up in a dorm with Spelman students. They were freshmen. I got to stay over. I think we arrived on Thursday. I think I left on Sunday, and I was there probably for 30 minutes when I was like, oh no, I have been wrong. This is my home. I want to come here. So my mom planted the seed in me. She took action because I was the type of person that, you know, you had to walk me through a few things during that time. So I had an opportunity to be on campus to experience Spelman and just fell in love. And so when I came home every day from school, I was running to the mailbox to see if I had a letter from Spelman. So that was my introduction to Spelman. When I got there, it felt like home. I felt like there were so many young women that were just like me. And it is, you know, what we commonly refer to as a gift that always continues to give to me. So my mother planted that seed and it just worked out from there.
Awesome. And the same thing for you, Cynthia. What led your steps to Spelman? What made you decide to, what we do now, raise the bar, right? Isn't that what the Spelman sisters?
Yeah, I'm still not good at it. I'm not good at it yet. We weren't doing it in 1993. But so I was not going to Spelman College as I entered my senior year in high school. I actually had done a summer program at Howard University between my junior and senior year in high school. And I had decided on Howard. And then a good friend of mine, she was thinking about Spelman. And Spelman started to write to me. And I started getting their information and I started, you know, doing a little more research. And I said, I grew up in a small town in Georgia. So I'm originally from Springfield, Georgia, which is right outside of Savannah, Georgia. And so, you know, I definitely knew I wanted to go to a bigger city for sure. And I just started reading about Spelman. You know, they sent me the information and I just started, even just by reading about it, I kind of fell in love with it. And I applied to Spelman. I had not visited it yet. Went with my parents to one of the weekend programs, or just a day in your life, I think, a day in your life at Spelman. And it was interesting because I was probably like most of the women I learned that first day, I guess, when they talked about all the valedictorians and all of the people you were there with. You know, I was always a great student. And I was almost assumed I'd get into whatever school I applied to, most of them. And when they started going through the statistics of the number of applicants and the number that get accepted, I started getting nervous for the first time. I'm like, will I be accepted to Spelman College? And similar to, Judge Hurdy, I was looking at that box and got that letter and was, thrilled. And, since that time, I was the first person in my family to attend Spelman. And we've had 4 other women become Spelman women after me. Wow. A sister, a niece, as well as 2 cousins. So Spelman, has become a love for us. I've definitely, I know that I'm sitting in this space doing what I'm doing in large part about, from what I gained through those years at Spelman College and the 27 years I've still been involved with the National Alumni Association of Spelman College. And so that's my Spelman journey. And, thought I was going to DC and ended up in Atlanta.
You both light up when you talk about Spelman, and Ashley and I can't stop smiling because I'm excited that you have that just glow about you when you talk about it. And obviously you graduated, like we said, but now what was your degree from Spelman? And I want to talk about your degree, but also talk about your favorite memory at the same time. And that could be something that happened on campus or a professor influencing you. But let's talk about your favorite memory and what your degree is in. Judge.
So you want to go first, Judge Purdy? I'm fine.
Go ahead, Cynthia.
Well, I got my degree at Spelman. I got a bachelor's in mathematics. And so I'm a STEM person, always kind of was in high school, and it naturally, went on at Spelman. And I, got my master's in statistics actually after Spelman College, went directly to the University of North Florida. And so, I would I'm going to give 2 quick memories. One happened at Spelman and one happened at University of North Florida. So I had such a privilege just this past Saturday to actually tell a professor in a Zoom room like this the difference she had made in my life. A professor at Spelman. I had a fundraiser hosted by a Spelman sister, and one of my professors attended. She was the chair of the math department at the time, and I was a senior at Spelman, and it was probably like no more than a month or so before graduation. and I was walking in the halls of Tapley, and she said, "Miss Wallace, come into my office. I just want to talk to you for a few minutes." I walked into her office, and she said, "What are you doing after Spelman?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to go home, and I, got a job. I'm going to teach for a couple years as a mathematics teacher in our middle school, and then I'll go back to grad school." And I was a poor, college student. I was ready to make money. And she said, "Well, I thought you were going to graduate school." And I said, "Well, I decided to just, go, make money for a couple of years and then go to graduate school." And she said, "The University of North Florida was just here, and they are looking for students. They really want to diversify their program, and you really should talk to them." She gave me the number. I talked to the gentleman, and he said, "What's your GRE?" Because I had done all of the prep work, to go to graduate school. And, I told him, he asked my GPA, and he said, "You've got to get this application in." It was probably 24 to 48 hours. And I reached out to Miss Maupin. I didn't, I hadn't completed, I didn't have, recommendation letters because I had decided a different path. And Miss Maupin from, she taught a lot of our business classes. Mm-hmm. She wrote a recommendation letter for me that I think I picked up at her house at like 10 p.m. And I completed the application. And the next thing you know, I'm going to the University of North Florida, where I ultimately got my master's in statistics. And I had an opportunity on Saturday to just tell her thank you. And I told her the story because, for her, it wasn't obviously probably as impressionable, but I've actually had an opportunity to tell her this. But to tell her this in a public space was one of the most special moments of this campaign. And I said at that Zoom that with the pandemic and the twists and turns it has caused, being a first-time candidate running for Congress in a pandemic has been no small feat. But what it has afforded me is an opportunity like this to have a chance to, do, presentations like this and have events with people and friends and family members from across the country. And without COVID, this wouldn't have happened. So I think of everything you look at, what are the positive things that it's brought from it? And that's the way I've always kind of looked at things. And then the last quick story is fast forward to graduate school. And one day a lady put there's a business card on my windshield because I had the Spelman tag with the little outline that many of us, I'm sure most of us had. And she had a card and she said, I see you're a Spelman graduate. I am as well. Come by my office. So Juanita Barnes, she was class of 1973, was in the Career Affairs office at the University of North Florida. And I went to her office. She was active with the Alumni Association, which is why I got involved with the Alumni Association immediately after college because I met her. And she, was just fabulous to me, with helpful in terms of, summer programs, helping me find, internships, doing summer work, with programs that needed people to teach. She helped with that. And she was the Southeast Regional Coordinator for the Alumni Association. And fast forward to, was it 2014, X number of years later, I became the Southeast Regional Coordinator. And I know that connection to Spelman was because of Juanita Barnes and her just, pouring into me that allowed me to, get engaged and stay involved for over 20 years with the Alumni Association and even deepen my love of Spelman and my commitment to the school.
That's beautiful. We love that. And again, same thing with you, Judge Purdy.
Sure.
Memory and your major. We want to know all about you and that journey through Spelman.
Sure. Well, I was a political science major during my time at Spelman. I was pre-law. I knew I wanted to go to law school from the moment that I stepped foot on their campus, so I already knew that. I think one of my best memories, and there's lots, but I was actually in the class where we had a curfew. And so I have many memories of leaving parties early, while other women in the AUC Center got to remain because they were not under a curfew. And I remember with friends being let off at that back gate at Spelman and trying to run all the way to my dorm by midnight, before midnight, or I would be in violation of that curfew. I stayed in Packard Hall at the time. Packard Hall is now, I think, an administrative office. So it was not close to that back gate. And you had to have some speed in which to get there. So that is probably one of the funniest memories, just sort of the curfew that we had freshman year, just for freshmen. One of the
Judge Purdy, just an interjection. My class, when I came in '89, we were the first freshman class that didn't have a curfew.
Oh, wow.
So the upperclassmen they weren't happy with us. And we said, we didn't make the decision, but we were happy not to have it.
Yeah. It was one of those things that it was like, I must have missed that in the informational materials. But when my parents were there during freshman week and the resident directors explaining the curfew, I'm like, curfew? Like, this is my first time away from home. What are you talking about, curfew? And my parents thought it was great. But, many of the freshmen, we thought it was horrible. And it was even more horrible to be at a party for the AUC Center. And the DJ literally announced, all Spelman women, it is time to go. You will turn into a pumpkin. It is time. You have 30 minutes. I mean, it was a countdown. And we thought, okay, we can't leave now because everybody's going to know we're under the curfew. So we got to dance a little bit longer and wait and slide out of the party to get home. So did not seem fair then, but it's pretty funny now to think about all the things that we did to make curfew, to skirt curfew. So that's probably one of my best memories at Spelman, along with just the wonderful friendships and lifelong friendships that I found myself making while there.
Well, I also want to know, just like so many people want to know, what's the process like when you decide you want to run for office? Because the thing I hear a lot now is we want so much change. Everyone's talking about change. How do we change things? And we talk about voting, but we want to be able to vote for people that are going to make the change. Mm-hmm. So there's so many of us that don't even know where to start. So Judge Purdy, talk to me about that process. If you, what was that like for you making that decision to go out to run, and what steps did you have to take?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges for African American women is you find yourself at a period of time in your life where you are having kids, you have a husband, you're maybe taking care of parents who are getting up in age, making some hard decisions as to whether or not you're going to move parents closer to you or you're going to move your family closer to them. So I think for most women, and I won't even put the restraint on that for African American women, but I just think women in general, we always feel like there's not a good time. Maybe when I get this freed up, I would be able to do something like run for office. I knew that I always wanted to eventually, when I became a lawyer and practiced for a while, I thought before I had children, I would like to be a judge, but sort of when you start to have children, you're like, well, maybe that's just sort of a dream that I'll just have to put back there for a while because I have other priorities right now. And when I would talk to some mentors that I had about, I would like to do this, but I have small children. They told me the same thing. And when I kept hearing the same thing from different people, it was, if you are waiting on a perfect time to run, you will never run for office. It's never a perfect time. You have to run when it is right, when the climate is right, but not necessarily when it's right in your personal life in which to run. I was a litigation lawyer. I was in a courtroom 90% of my practice. I traveled to courtrooms throughout Texas, throughout the United States. I can tell you that my travel throughout Texas, that was a little eye-opening. And I think probably what forced me to do it maybe sooner than later was just some of the unfair treatment maybe from judges that I thought I got. And I couldn't tell if it was the unfair treatment because I'm a woman, because I'm a person of color, or am I just not from your small hometown? So there were a lot of things sort of at play. But I kept hearing those mentors telling me it's never going to be a perfect time, never going to be a perfect time. You just have to jump in. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to jump in. I had both of my children. I decided I would do it while they were young rather than older, and that they would just have to come with me to meetings, come with me to Democratic Club meetings, and sit there and do their homework or color or whatever it is they were having to do, but they would have to come with me. And I thought to myself, you know, this isn't maybe such a bad thing. It's educational for them. And, you know, this is what we're doing right now. So I think that the process is not so much. It's much like any particular profession that you might be in. You have to figure out the avenue in which to get there. Here in Texas, if you're going to run for office, you can either pay a filing fee to be on the ballot, or you can do what most people do, and that is go around and talk to voters and have them sign your petition to be on the ballot. You have to gather so many signatures in which to do that. I was already out in the community doing a lot of things that resembles community service. I was the Black Bar Association president for our region here. I was very active. It was just something that I've always done, something that I was taught to do. As a young person, I did it at Spelman as well. So it wasn't anything that was foreign to me. And when I first started practicing law here in Dallas County, which was I came to Dallas from Houston, that was in 1994. The particular court that I'm sitting in now, there were nothing but white men on the bench. There weren't even white women at that particular time. So it was kind of one of these things, can I see myself sitting in one of these particular seats? And then of course, as time began to change and demographics changed in our county, those seats started to look a little bit differently. So I took interest in it. I think you have to decide again, it's not going to be a perfect personal time for your life. If you are wanting to do this, don't wait. Do it while you're passionate about it. It does open you up, your personal life up. You know, there are personal finance filings and things like that I have to do. And so that's just part of my job. It's no different than someone that might be an engineer or someone that might be a marketing person. That's just part of my job. I didn't necessarily have a particular incident that I was mad about that pushed me to run. I knew I wanted to be a judge, and it was a matter of just how do I get there? I'm very methodical, so I had to map it out. How do I get there? And, you know, lo and behold, when I got into this particular race, pretty much, you know, Black women are a hot commodity in politics right now. So again, while I thought it wasn't perfect timing for me, it was perfect timing for what the party is seeing and what they are experiencing. I was on a call before the vice presidential debate with the Biden-Harris team here in the state of Texas. About 300 African-American women were on that call, and we have 50 African-Americans women on the ballot here in the state of Texas. And so what we're seeing is that people are stepping up. People are tired of what they're seeing, tired of what they're experiencing, and they know that I can't leave it up to somebody else to do the job when I can do the job myself. So that's sort of my scenario as to how I got involved and how I jumped into politics.
Wow, well, that is so inspiring. And I love what you said about the timing. Like, there's so many things that we all want to do that many of us put off, because we say the time is not right. And I love that you took action and you did it. And congratulations. And I'm excited to hear from you, Cynthia, next, because you kind of have a non-traditional path. Like, it makes sense that Judge Purdy would have to be a lawyer, practice law, give back to the community, and then aspire to become a judge and become a judge. But you graduated from Spelman with a math degree. Now, I also graduated from Spelman with a math and engineering degree. So, shout out to all the math majors and math students at Spelman. But tell us, how did you go from math to running for Congress? What inspired you, and what is your career path like that you go from math to finance to running for Congress? Please tell us more.
So, and I definitely loved what Judge Purdy said as well about the timing. There's never going to be a right time, so you've got to pick the time, or sometimes the time picks you, which is probably a combination of what has happened with me. But my dad actually was a civil rights activist. So when people ask me when I got started in politics, I basically say before I was born. He actually helped co-found the NAACP in 1968 in our small hometown that was 13% African American. And so he lived a life of service. He was the first African American elected to our county commission in our hometown. And so, I definitely always was involved in, what was happening in the community and seeing activism firsthand, being a part of it as a child. But I did kind of go this math and business route for sure, 20 plus years. And then 12 years ago here in Charlotte, I got involved as a volunteer with President Obama's, or then Senator Obama's, campaign to become president. And I walked into a volunteer office, his campaign headquarters, and said, I'm a volunteer. I'd like to help. And from there, I got more involved in the political scene here in Charlotte. So I continued to stay engaged. And I became a part of the Democratic Party structure as a precinct chair, which is the ground level grassroots person helping organize my area. And I became a delegate in 2012 for the Democratic National Convention. And it was here in Charlotte. So that was a once in a lifetime experience for, President Obama's second nomination. And then in 2017, I became the chair for the 9th Congressional District. And so for the Democratic Party, which is the district that I'm running in, the 9th Congressional District for North Carolina. And I just did the work, did service, volunteer role with the full-time job, working to organize folks in 8 counties of the district. So my evenings and my weekends were very full leaving Charlotte. And actually, I grew up in a really small town, as I mentioned. And that experience actually gave me an opportunity to reconnect with my rural roots. I went places that felt like my Georgia home church, or that felt like the people I grew up with, or it felt like my aunts, my cousins. And so I just started to love the district. And I worked hard with other candidates who tried to win this seat. And we actually had the infamous absentee ballot fraud that people may have heard about around the country that happened in one congressional race in 2018. That was my district. So I actually turned into a bit of an activist in this role, holding rallies, fighting for a new fair election. And then we had that second election, and the candidate who won wasn't in my party, and he didn't show up for us. He missed a third of the votes in his first month in office. That was in September of last year. Filing was starting in December, and I definitely had folks who were, talking to me about running. It's something that was kind of in the back of my mind, but not necessarily 2020. And I, got a lot of encouragement from people in the district who had seen my work, knew my, care and concern for the folks. And I prayed about it, talked to my family, and 10 days before filing was going to close in December, I started assembling volunteers to help me make this happen. And I jumped in the race in December of last year. And that was 3 months before the primary. and was able to get 56% of the vote in a four-way race, 3 men and Cynthia.
Wow.
And, you know, I felt called to do it. There was lots of confirmation. You know, I'm a spiritual person, and I had a lot of confirmation at the time I was making that decision. And even with the twists and turns of 2020, that confirmation still is there. And I'm in this race for a particular time. And as Judge Purdy said, I think the voice of Black women are needed now even more than ever. And with, you know, the pandemic, with the social unrest, having my voice here, I think in particular was what, you know, I think it's a specific voice that wouldn't have been at the table, you know, if it had been 2 white men running for this seat, which has been the pattern for years and years and years, no matter which party. And so that's kind of how I got into it. And, you know, so volunteering got me more involved in politics. And so I learned a lot through that process. And my professional career is in risk and regulatory compliance. So I interpret laws for my company. And I often say now I'm going to start writing the laws once I get elected to Congress.
Well, we want to make sure both of you guys, ladies, sorry, are elected. And we want everyone to know exactly why they need to get out to the polls, besides you are raising the bar in your Spelman women. But Judge Purdy, if you can start by telling us why should we vote for you? And then Cynthia, if you can wrap up in like a minute and tell us why we can vote for you in about a minute.
Sure. I'm happy to share that. Here in Tech, you know, let me say this because I know that our viewers are from all over, but here in Texas, we do elect judges. In some states, they don't elect judges. They could be appointed by your governor, or there could be a retention election to keep judges. But here in Texas, Texas is one of the few states that we do elect judges in our state. They have to you run a partisan election. So there's going to be a candidate that's a Democrat, and there's going to be a candidate that's a Republican. I'm the Democratic nominee. I do have an opponent in the general election. I have a Republican opponent. But what I am telling voters and constituents when they ask that question of me, why should I cast my vote for you? I tell them because I'm trusted, tested, and experienced. And if you have a case before the court, do you want someone that is trusted, tested, and experienced, or do you want someone that has literally been on the job for 14 days? My Republican opponent has been defeated in this county for the last 6 election cycles. He is a person that runs every election cycle as a Republican. Nice guy. However, the governor appointed him to the seat that I'm running for at the end of July. So he's had no trial experience while he's been there, and just not somebody who you would want sitting before your particular case. This is not a job. I've been doing it for the past 7.5 years. This is not a job that I would purport that you can get on the job training. You need someone that knows what they're doing. You need someone that can serve you on day one. And I am that candidate, ready to serve you on day one. We have judicial bar evaluation polls in our jurisdictions where the lawyers that appear before these courts get to anonymously grade the judges that they are appearing before. I have a consistent 90% rating with these attorneys that appear in our courts. When people ask me, how can I tell if somebody's a good judge? I tell them, you should look at the bar evaluation poll. Is that 100%? Probably not 100%, but it gives you some indication as to how at least the bar thinks this judge is performing. So my opponent does not have those rankings. And again, I would just leave you with those three words. I'm trusted, tested, and experienced. I'm telling people on social media, justice is on the ballot. And if you want a jurist that is going to make sure you have fair and impartial rulings, I'm that jurist, Judge Monica Purdy.
All right, well, I'm ready to vote for you. I wish I could. But as Judge Purdy said, most folks probably watching this don't live in North Carolina, but I am running for the 9th Congressional District. And I tell folks, why do you want to vote for me? You vote for me because you're going to be electing a fighter for them, a person that's going to show up like I've done for many years as that 9th Congressional District Chair, not staying in my urban setting, but going out into the rural areas of this district, because that at the core of me is who I am, that I reflect this district with my rural and urban values that I've built over my lifetime. And you're going to have a fighter that's going to be fighting for economic outcomes for folks in this district, fighting for better paying jobs with livable wages, fighting for access to affordable health care, fighting to help lower their prescription drug prices, a fighter that's going to make sure that we expand their access to broadband for much needed telehealth and remote work, which has become a critical issue as we've gone through this pandemic, though it was on my issues and concerns back in December, well before the pandemic hit. And they're going to have a fighter that's going to be working on reducing the $1.5 trillion in student loan debt that's crippling our society as parents and their children alike are drowning in mortgage-sized debt. And they're going to have someone that is going to be focused on their district and their needs and concerns. Unlike my opponent, who focuses on partisan political issues and the divisive issues, I'm going to be focused on them. The things that you're talking about at your kitchen table, when you're concerned about how are you going to pay the rest of your rent? How are you going to, put food on the table? Those things that you care about, that's what I'm going to be there focused on every day, every minute, and I'm going to be there for you. So that's why I tell them, you want to support me, that's what you're going to get when you do.
All right. Well, thank you both for taking your valuable time during this campaign trail to spend it with HBCU highlights and our viewers. And we know that right now everybody is feeling energized, feeling inspired, just like Ashley and I, to make a difference. And like Judge Purdy said, to take action. The time is now. I love how you said justice is on the ballot. So every vote counts. We want to encourage you all, if you feel inspired, to run for office. And we want to encourage you all to vote. Even if you're not in a position to run, you can make a difference just with one single vote. And I definitely want you all to give your websites, and we will provide that in the caption. But just because you can't cast your vote in Dallas and you can't cast your vote in North Carolina doesn't mean you can't support the candidates financially. And they need all the help they can get, whether that be reposting this video, sharing their pages on social media. Do what you can, and let's get Judge Monica Purdy elected again in Dallas. And let's elect Cynthia Wallace to Congress in North Carolina so we can say our Spelman sister is in Congress, but not only that, so we can have fair representation. So we want to thank you both, but just quickly, Judge Purdy, what is your website where people can support you and follow you?
Sure. My campaign website is judgemonicapurdy.com. You can find me at that same handle on Facebook. On Instagram, the same handle, and I tweet. So Judge Monica Purdy, if you do a search, judgemonicapurdy.com, that should all come up for you.
And my website is cynthiawallace.com. You can see the sign, very simple. And some version of Wallace for Congress on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And I'm definitely, one of the things too, even if you don't live in North Carolina, there are 435 members of Congress, and we vote for the entire country. So the decisions that are made in Congress don't only impact folks in North Carolina. So definitely need your support. We've got, 7 days until Election Day, 7 days to literally, save our democracy, because that is what you're voting for on November 3rd. And so we definitely love your help, love your support. Thank you so much.
Well,
and Cynthia, we needed to see your shirt before we could.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure that you show us Spelman Women Vote. I like
That's right.
It's so perfect because Spelman Women Vote, Spelman Women Run, and then we're going to just end it with Spelman Women Win. So we cannot wait to see the results of the polls and celebrate with you, Judge Purdy, as you become reelected as the judge in Dallas in your county. And Cynthia Wallace, we are so excited and cannot wait to welcome you in Congress. And we want to be invited to your Zoom parties. So make sure you share all that information with HBCU Highlights. And we want to thank you all for watching. For more inspiring videos and interviews like this, check out hbcuhighlights.com and follow us all over social media. And thank you again for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you all.